Today we're talking about hydration and water quality. We got a bunch of subtopics to talk about, but before we get into that, I want to talk about our big purpose as a community. So we've got a great little online community. It's just like it's getting to be more and more fun every day, and it's going to grow into something so beautiful because it's really just about supporting all of us. So what we're doing is we're bringing together people that for most of our lives, which is all of us, have been lost and confused when it comes to health. And now we're seeking clarity and confidence. We're learning concepts together. We're putting those concepts into practice, and we're supporting each other throughout the entire process so that we can have some confidence and clarity around these different health topics. And the ultimate goal is for us to be happy and healthy and to look, feel, and perform amazing, and to love the way that we look and be comfortable in our own bodies. And so that is what we're doing. The way that we're doing that is we have kind of like a projected, it's flexible, but like a 90-day outlook. Right now we're finishing up Natural Solutions Month. Next month in July is Flexible Animal-Based Omnivore. In August, we're going to be covering Grounding, Hiking, Camping, and Outdoors 101. And then we have a weekly seminar that we usually hold on either Friday or Saturday. We're thinking about opening up live seminars again on Saturdays. We're not sure about that yet. I kind of like this whole doing it on Friday because it keeps the weekends a little bit more open. But I'm just wondering if the reason we don't get as much participation is because it's a Friday versus a Saturday. So we might experiment with that. But anyway, we got this 90-day plan. We have a monthly theme. Within that monthly theme, we have our weekly seminars. And then in the community, we have just really fun little questions and polls and things that we're trying to keep people engaged with. And they're starting to get really cool. So I just want to, if you're not a part of the community, invite you to it. As an OG, as someone who's been here for a little bit, we'll give you a discount. So just let us know if that applies to you. And we'd love to see you in there. It's been really, really great. All right. So let's talk about first roles of water inside the body, because understanding how important water is and the functions that it contributes to can give us some leverage to drink water appropriately. All right. So we can go weeks to months without food. I mean, people do it all the time, especially in this fasting, crazy society that we're in right now. But we can only go days without water. And it depends on where you live, your physical exertion, and things like that, right? But water is something that we're consuming every single day. Think about how much you're drinking from something throughout the day. And most of us, I think all of us here, are not doing sodas. We're not drinking anything besides probably water, coffee, and tea, sparkling water, stuff like that, right? So you're drinking a lot of water. You're consuming this stuff all the time. It's estimated that if you include all the different mucus, saliva, tears, digestive juices, interstitial fluid, we are composed of about 60 to 70% water. And if you don't filter your water, then your body becomes the filter. That's the bottom line. Whatever toxins are in the water, your body is going to have to filter out those toxins. Now, in days old, when we're drinking from spring water and filtered groundwater, that probably wasn't anywhere near the issue that it is today. But today, we are filtering out a lot of toxins. And we're also, if you're not drinking clean water and you're also trying to or attempting to filter out toxins the body's never been exposed to before. And so, and maybe we can't do it because these are such new, different toxins. So now let's understand some of the roles of water. So it improves oxygen delivery to cells. It helps to transport nutrients to all the different cells and tissues and organ systems. It enables cellular hydration, and then it moistens our oxygen for easier breathing. Notice every time you breathe on some glass or a mirror, like it fogs it up just a little bit, right? You're always expelling water through your breath, by the way. Water also helps us to cushion bones and joints, and it helps us absorb shocks to joints and organs. Very important for those of us that are especially very active, right? Proper hydration, crucial for people that are active and crucial for healthy joints. And then also water helps us remove wastes and flush toxins out of the body. Obviously when you use the bathroom, a big component of that is going to be water, but water also helps with your bowel movements, and then you're excreting waste through things like, again, your breath, through your skin, through sweat. There's a lot of different places that water helps to filtrate water or toxins outside of the body. And then also water helps to prevent tissues from sticking, and it helps to lubricate our joints so that they move a little bit easier. Very important to all of us. And then very important for communication of cells, whether it's neurons in the brain, neurotransmitters throughout the body, and then also any kind of cellular communication, system communication, organ communication. It enables the body to actually communicate with itself. And because water is conductive as far as electricity goes, these electrical signals. And then it also helps regulate your body's temperature. Some of that happens through sweat. Some of it happens just through changing the temperature of the liquids in all our different tissues. And probably one of the most important benefits is that it empowers the body's natural healing processes, because when you're fully hydrated or adequately hydrated, then all these other processes are happening properly. Like you're getting your nutrients, you're removing waste, you're having really good communication. And so when all those things are clicking, then your body can actually heal itself. And when you don't have all this stuff happening because of poor hydration, then your body is kind of stagnant and at a standstill. All right. So that's roles of water in the body, a very kind of high level overlook. And now let's just talk about signs of dehydration. Very interesting, very short piece of this. We have one of the best books we read. We read it when we were in the nutritional therapy practitioner school. It was Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And of course, like anybody that writes a book on something, they feel like that is the thing that is going to fix everybody and everything, right? So you read a book on adrenal glands and adrenal fatigue. If you fix your adrenals, that fixes everything. So this guy's perspective was definitely water and hydration, but he made a lot of really good arguments. And what we notice is there's these signs of dehydration in the early stages that a lot of us will mistaken for something else. So, and I notice this now. If I rarely go without drinking water pretty regularly, but if I ever do go through a day where I've had a brutal workout, I've sweat a lot, and I got so busy I forgot to drink water, then I would notice myself get kind of irritable, have a little bit of a mood shift or change. A lot of people get tired. So, your mood's impacted by hydration, and then also cravings. Like a lot of us will mistake hunger for actual, like a craving for some water. And we know that that's the case because a lot of times if you just down some water at the onset of what you feel like is a craving, sometimes it completely goes away. So your cry for thirst is sometimes mistaken for a cry for food. So the solution, the headache's huge, right? So the solution here, actually, Chandler, I need to make sure Arnix is drinking a lot of water. So the solution here, when you have some of these initial symptoms, and I would say if you have any symptom that comes on out of nowhere, then whether it's an emotional symptom or a physical symptom, drink some water, see if that helps things a little bit. But then we've got these other mature signs of dehydration, and I would say that if you have these symptoms, like there's probably a lot of other things contributing to those symptoms, but making sure that you're adequately hydrated can be a part of your overall strategy for sure. All right. I don't think hydration is the only thing that contributes to a lot of this stuff, but it is a contributor. All right. And really, we're talking about people that are not in our world that are not drinking water. We're talking about people that are drinking soda pops and all that kind of stuff. All right. So all this information is going to be recorded and housed at our little community website. So that was, we're talking about signs of dehydration. So now let's move on to how much water we need to consume. All right. So the holistic recommendation for how much water you should consume in a day is half your body weight in ounces up to 100 ounces max in a day. And we cap off at 100 ounces because if you go over 100 ounces consistently, we start to see flushing of electrolytes and some other problems. I remember when I was at West Point, we did a lot of running and we drank so much water. We had a lot of people drop, I forget what the condition is called, but you overhydrate, and we had people passing out on runs. And so they put out some kind of a big notice around like, okay, there's certain guidelines. We don't want to exceed this maximum. So the holistic recommendation is 100 up to 100 ounces per day. I think people walking around with these big gallon jugs trying to get through a gallon of water a day, like that's completely misguided. This is a very useful guideline for people starting out. All right. So if someone's transitioning over from processed food to our way of doing things, then it's useful to have a hydration guideline because they're usually replacing sodas and other unhealthy drinks with water. But I don't think this is necessary over the long term. Okay. So starting out, if you're 160 pounds, that's 80 ounces of water. If you're 225 pounds, because the max is 100 ounces, you max out at 100 ounces. Okay. So I think it's a useful guideline. And if you care to monitor how much water you drink, maybe you're just setting aside, if you're 160 pounds, you're setting aside 80 ounces of water, and maybe your goal is to to possibly get through that, but it's not like absolutely mandatory, especially if you're eating real food. All right, now what I think is ideal for those of us that have transitioned over into real food and we've made this a part of our life is that you just want to drink to thirst and have a little bit of common sense about it. You definitely want to be drinking water throughout the day, but I don't think you should be forcing yourself to drink a certain amount of water. Your body is extremely intelligent and intuitive, and it will tell you when it's thirsty for sure, right? And then, of course, like if you have a super hot day, you're out in the sun a lot, you're doing a lot of physical exertion, or you're doing a lot of exercise, that would definitely be a time that you would want to make sure that you're drinking more water more regularly. But I don't think that you have to be neurotic about the amounts that you consume. All right. So holistic recommendation is have your body weight in ounces up to 100 ounces. But what we recommend as real foodies and people in the SHT is really just drink to thirst and make sure that you're drinking water every day. Make sure that you're not just drinking coffee and you're not just drinking tea, which a lot of us might accidentally get into the habit of. All right. Cool. And again, all this stuff is located and will be housed at our community website at community.superhumantransformation.com. And now let's get into water quality. So this is one of the biggest reasons that I think that we're here today. So the major toxins that we want to be aware of and that we're concerned about in dirty water are pathogens, believe it or not, even in, or especially in municipal water. We have the potential for bacteria, parasites, and viruses. And even with chlorine and chlorinated water. Heavy metals, especially from copper and lead and pipes, and sometimes in some systems there's old pipes and there's junctures that use this different materials. Nitrates, and then also radioactive gas that gets into the water system. All right, those are the biggest ones, but the EWG has identified hundreds of different contaminants that it's concerned about. So what you can do is you can actually check your own water. You can simply Google EWG, check my water, or just go to EWG. They have one of the big buttons there is like a tap water database or something like that. Yep, that's what it is. And so they update this every year. You can type in your zip code and you can see what your water quality is like. Now you can go to your municipality and pull up actual water reports. They have different standards from what the EWG has. The EWG has its own standards that it's put together. And so when I pull up the Las Vegas Valley Water District's numbers and information, they have 14 contaminants that exceed their health guidelines. All right. So with 31 total contaminants in the water here. And when you rank Vegas water compared to all the different municipalities in the US, I had this last year. I can't remember. I can't believe I forgot to put it in here, but we were ranked in the top like 5 or 6, I think, as far as the dirtiest water in the nation. Okay. So I just pulled up a screenshot of the ones so it said 14 different contaminants that exceed their recommendations. And these are the ones 452 times the amount of recommendation for arsenic, which is insane. All right, so you can just glance at these here. I'm not going to try to say some of this stuff. All right, so that's a tremendous amount of excess toxins in the water here. Trihalomethanes, like I've heard so much about that from some of my holistic hot shots. All right, so Vegas water, extremely dirty. All right, so let's talk about now, I think one takeaway that we can take away from that piece of it is if you're curious about your water quality, depending on where you are, I would go to the EWG and check it out. Also check out your water information from your municipality. And this is leverage to make sure that we're drinking clean, pristine water. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about the filter types. And I'd say anything is better than nothing, but we definitely want to shoot for something that's optimal. So I think we're all probably aware of activated carbon. So activated carbon chemically bonds with and removes contaminants as water flows through it. And the effectiveness of this carbon varies by the density of the carbon, right? So if you have loose granules, they don't pick up as much stuff. But if you have really jam-packed together granules, that's going to filter out more stuff. And then also the quality of the carbon is going to have an impact on how many toxins are removed. So it is good at removing some things like chlorine and improving the taste and color, but it does not remove some of the things that we're definitely concerned about, like arsenic and fluoride. So it's better than not having anything at all, for sure. If you search on Amazon or just Google some block filters would be compressed, really tightly pressed carbon. And so because it's so tightly pressed, there's a lot more surface area for the water to travel through, which means it's going to be filtered a lot more. Right here next to my office and next to the combine, there's a company called MultiPure. I think it's MultiPure. Yeah, it's MultiPure. And they specialize. I think this is actually a MultiPure filter. And they did a demo. We went over there and they showed how the whole system worked. And so they are they specialize in these carbon block filters. And they're a little bit more expensive than some of the cheaper carbon filters, but they get more of the stuff out, right? Definitely better than granulated, but not as good as a reverse osmosis system. Now, activated carbon in the granulated form is probably the most common filter that we see out there, and this is the things like the Brita filters and the Pure filters. They may offer a carbon block filter version, but the majority of the ones I've seen are all this granulated version. So the granulated is kind of loose carbon. Sometimes it's tightly packed, sometimes it's a little bit looser, and that's what's hard to tell, right? There's no way to measure that. So it's better than nothing, but it's definitely not as effective as a carbon block filter because you don't have so much surface area. And I'd say that it's better to be drinking water from the tap that's put through this. When I was at Arnica's place up in Boise, this is what she had, a Pure filter on her sink, and that was it. So I definitely prefer drinking that than I would just straight from the tap. But it's definitely not as good as a carbon block and definitely not as good as the RO system. Again, if you have questions or anything, just put them in the question thing or comments. Distilled water, I think, is extremely clean, but when you dig into how distilled water works, so what happens is you boil water and then that vapor condenses into another container. So you do remove a lot of contaminants, but there's some things that just don't get boiled off. And a lot of insecticides and things like will actually stay with that steam. So it just depends on what it is, how hot it is. And so it's a really good, clean option for sure. It's definitely void of minerals, so you definitely want to remineralize distilled water. I remember I went through some alternative cancer therapy certifications. I was working with my dad's late wife, and I had a couple clients since then, and they all recommend using distilled water because it's clean, but then they also always recommend adding minerals back to it because it's so clean that it would strip your body of minerals. When you put in really, really clean water into your body might tend to pull some nutrients from other places to turn that water into something more usable. So I think distilled water can be good in a pinch. You know, if you're traveling and you're looking for some water, you're going on a hike, or you're at a gas station filling up before going on a camping trip or something like that, and this is all you have access to, distilled water is tremendously better than tap water, but I don't think it's as good as RO water. All right. So reverse osmosis, we would say, is probably the gold standard. And then ideally, it's reverse osmosis with a pre-filter, post-filters, and then you can add on top of that things like infrared and ozonation and things like that, right? But reverse osmosis, most of those filters are going to come with some pre and post filters anyway. And what happens is it pushes this tap water through a semi-permeable membrane, but the permeation there is so microscopic. That's why they call it osmosis, because it's a slow process. Only like really, really pristine, clean water can get through these small openings. And then it can remove just about everything, but I don't think there's any filtration system that can get out completely everything. It says here may not remove. When it says chlorine, I would say not all chlorine, but it removes a tremendous amount of it. And then the trihalomethanes and the VOCs. And again, it's degrees here, but I think reverse osmosis is going to be the best bet that we have. And if you add some pre and post filtration, that enhances a lot of what it's taking out of the water. So again, gold standard is going to be reverse osmosis. A lot of people ask about alkalinity because there's a lot of water that's marketed as alkaline. And we think that alkalinity is a very moot point because your body has different alkalinities in different places. So my stomach, our upper GI, is meant to be extremely acidic because acidity is what breaks down proteins. When I have strong acidity in my stomach, there's this protein digesting enzyme called pepsin that gets secreted through the stomach walls. And once it gets into the stomach, if I have a really low pH or a high acidity level, then it activates pepsin, and I start to digest my proteins and meats and things like that very effectively. But if I don't have strong acidity, I don't activate pepsin to the degree that I should, which means I don't have strong digestion. I don't initiate other processes throughout the digestive process, because that acidity is what signals peristalsis and the pancreas to secrete certain hormones and things like that. So my point here is that I am supposed to have a really strong acidity in my stomach. If I'm drinking something that's alkaline, which is the opposite of acidity, then with the intention of changing that in my tissues, it has to first go through the acidity of my stomach. So it's a moot point at that point, right? My small intestine is more of a neutral alkalinity or acidity, because that's where I'm absorbing nutrients. And then ideally, theoretically, a lot of my tissues are going to be alkaline, but it's not because I'm eating alkaline or non-alkaline foods. It's because I have the proper nutrients necessary to buffer alkalinity and acidity properly, which usually the body will do through the nutrients in the bones. So the alkalinity or acidity of my tissues and my body are not a direct reflection of the acidity or alkalinity of the foods or the water that I'm drinking. It's really a reflection of the health of the body in general, and the body's ability to have stored nutrients that it can use to buffer different things. And so the bottom line there is that it is pointless to try to eat something that's either alkaline or acidic to try to change that somewhere else in the body, because it's going through an acidic stomach, a neutral small intestine, and then usually in the colon, maybe it's a little bit more alkaline, I think. So I hope that addresses it. Now, if I have some water that's reverse osmosis, carbon filtrated, ozonated, and it just so happens to be alkaline, there's nothing wrong with consuming that. But I'm not going to pay. My point here is I'm not going to pay extra money for alkaline water. At Whole Foods, you can get reverse osmosis water. You can hit this little button and it turns it alkaline, but you have to pay a little bit more money. And I just think it's pointless. All right. So we're talking about filtration systems. Now let's just talk a little bit about bottled water. What about bottled water? Well, I'm going to share some links in our follow-up to some really, really good blog posts with a bunch of analogies, a bunch of research and statistics on the amount of energy that goes into bottled water production. We have some of the cleanest public water in the world. I mean, we're sitting here talking about all the different contaminants, right? But if you go to other countries, you'll see that their water is not anywhere near as clean as our water. And the point there is that we have this clean water, or relatively cleaner water, coming straight to our homes. A lot of countries don't have that. And so we have the ability to filter our own water straight from our tap. A lot of other people in other countries don't have that ability. And the analogy that this one author used was like, imagine that, we have electricity coming into our home, but we thought it was better for us to get this cleaner energy that was created over in Sweden or something, and they put it into batteries, and they ship these batteries over to our homes, and we're using these big batteries and to power our homes because we think it's, for whatever reason, better. And then we have to dispose of those batteries somewhere, and we have this huge problem with the creation of the batteries, the production of the batteries, and then the disposal of the dead batteries once we're done with it. It's the same thing with bottled water. We're bottling water, we're filtering it, hopefully, and then bottling it. But that happens like in places that are very far from where we are right now. And that water, or bottled water, gets stored, it gets shipped, it gets stored again. To produce those bottles, you have plastic production, you have fossil fuel usage, and then you have the toxins associated with the plastics. So it's insane how much bottled water people consume. And I think a lot of people just consume bottled water without even thinking they can filter their own water, with one extra step, and that's just buying a filter or installing a filter. So, we're sitting here talking about how to improve our health, how to be health conscious and environmentally supportive. And at the same time, if we're out buying a bunch of bottled water, I think it gets a double standard, because we're contributing to the problem that we're trying to solve and avoid anyway. All right. So bottled water, especially if it's filtered or purified, is nothing more than tap water that's been filtered. So why not just filter that water yourself at your home? It's going to be way more cost effective, by the way. And again, when we bottle water and filter it, you have to keep in mind that they're probably using the most inexpensive water they can possibly find. And even though that water is filtered, it is starting with more contaminants than it's starting with the most contaminants that it could possibly have. So even though it's being filtered, we've already seen there is no filtration system that gets everything out. And so we're filtering really contaminated water, which means we may have slightly less quality filtered water afterwards. And again, this whole shipping and storing and staying in all these warehouses, we have temperature changes. And so that is inducing the toxins in the plastic to be leached into the water that we're drinking. So it's defeating the purpose of drinking clean water. Now, if you're going to buy bottled water in a pinch, like if you need it for some reason, I remember when we were at Arnica's, I told her, I was like, look, let's just get some clean water and put it in the fridge. Then you want to look for purified or drinking water. And when you see that on the label, it usually implies that it's been reverse osmosis, carbon filtrated. Sometimes they'll have some other filtration additions, there. But usually purified drinking water implies a really good filtration system, but I would always read the fine print and look for reverse osmosis, carbon filtrated. And then distilled water is also an option in the pinch. But this is when you're buying bottled water as a last resort. Okay, I think everyone should try to get their own filtered water to some degree. All right. And again, all this information is going to be housed at our community website at community.superhumantransformation.com, including all the links and resources. And now let's talk a little bit about sparkling waters. By the way, so I didn't mention in here. Let's go back to that real quick. The filtered water. There's water stations, or what do we call it? There's places you can fill up your water here in Vegas, water stores. And I think that's a great option. If you buy your own like 5 or 7 gallon jug and you go fill it up at some of these water stations, usually they're like a 13-step filtration process. They start with reverse osmosis. They usually go through some infrared and some ozonation maybe or something like that. So I think that's a really good option too. Whole Foods is where I get most of my water. I've never installed a RO system in my apartment because I can't. And I actually just found this new water filter called Aqua True, and I'll send out a link to it that a lot of the holistic hotshots that I follow have recommended. And it's actually a countertop RO system. So ways that you can source really good RO water and still be contributing to the health of the planet and the environment would be to use a water store and fill up your water jugs, or to get a in-house installed water filtration system, all right, an RO system. And then also that Aqua True looks like something that's totally legit. All right, so let's talk about sparkling waters. I think sparkling waters from pristine sources, by the way, Topo Chico is my #1 favorite. I think sparkling waters, especially if they're in glass containers, I think that's awesome. I think that's great. So they are, and you have to make a phone call to these different companies to verify. Whole Foods has its own sparkling water brand. I called up, looked at the water quality report, and it was terrible. I couldn't believe it. So they basically took tap water and then just put carbon dioxide in it. But if you call some of these other companies and you find out where their well source is located, and you can also cross-reference that with, I think it's Wellspring or Mindspring, where they have all over the world these documented springs that are pristine and very, very clean. The water's tested. There's a few that stood out, and the #1s are Gerolsteiner, Topo Chico, and then Pellegrino. They all come from pristine sources. Some of their carbonation comes straight from the spring. Sometimes they add a little bit of carbonation, which is not a problem. But these are pristine sources bottled directly into glass bottles. Sometimes some of these companies offer some plastic bottles, but if you're using glass bottles, I think those are great. So it's really clean water. It's also slightly mineralized because it's coming from the ground, right? So love sparkling waters. I usually fill up my 40-ounce canteen, and I mineralize that, and then I drink through that throughout the day. And usually I'll run out of that, and then for the rest of the day, I'm drinking Pellegrino or Topo Chico. All right. So sparkling waters from good sources, and how do you know if it's a good source? You have to call them. Like I've called every single one of these companies, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass to get the right information or talk to the person that you need to. But these are verified. And if you come across another sparkling water that you're curious about, let me know, or you can just make the phone call yourself and share it with us. All right, so next let's talk about flavored waters, because that's also something a lot of people are curious about. Sparkling flavored waters are fine as long as they are clean. And to some degree, I feel like, drinking a lot of these cans and bottles and things that's contributing to the same problem as the bottled water piece. I feel like glass is a little bit different, more environmentally safe, but we can make the same argument about glass bottles as well. I think plastic's way worse though. But anyway, same argument with the sparkling waters. We just need to verify that these are made with good, clean water. So I've talked to LaCroix. They are reverse osmosis, carbon filtrated. And then when you ask them about their flavoring, it's fruit essence is what they call it. And I try to get more clarification on it. From what I understand, it's like some kind of an essential oil, but it does get extracted from the fruit. Okay, so that could not be an optimal process. I'm not sure what that is, but in the grand scheme of things, I think drinking LaCroix is definitely better than drinking tap water or something. Pellegrino has their own LaCroix versions of some water, and they check out as well. They actually use the water that comes from their spring. But again, you need to call the company to know for sure. There's a bunch of other brands out there, so it's impossible to list all of them. But the question is it clean water, and what is that flavoring from? Stevia completely checks out. They use stevia to sweeten it, and then their flavors are natural as well. I've talked to them on the phone, asked them some pretty pointy questions. Spindrift is another good one. They use a little bit of sugar, so it's a little bit of sweet sometimes. And then one that I found was the new bubbly or boobly. And so when you dig into, I finally talked to someone that gave me a clear answer, and they said that it comes from clean water that is that it meets all water standards. And the gist that I got from them is that it was municipality water. It was not filtered past that. All right. So there's some sparkling waters out there and flavored waters that are probably not very good for us. All right. So the final thing I want to talk about or address is mineralized hydration. And we want to make sure that if we are drinking really clean water, and again, in this modern world, I think it's necessary to filter our water unless you're drinking really, really clean spring water. But mineralized hydration is basically mimicking what we'd be drinking if we were drinking groundwater. So before modernization, we had access to water that was filtered through the ground, but it also picked up a lot of natural beneficial nutrients. And so when you think about what the fluids are inside our body, our interstitial fluids, our digestive juices, our tears, our mucus, our saliva, those all are not super clean water. Like, they resemble probably something more like salt water than anything else. So if I'm drinking very, very pure clean water, then my body is going to have to pull from its resources to then convert that really pure water into tears and mucus and saliva and digestive juices and interstitial fluid. And so we want to help the body a little bit by giving it some of those nutrients. And the best nutrients that we believe to be out there are going to be things that are considered electrolytes and minerals, all right? Because these are very easy for the body to use. And we have an example of some electrolytes there. There's some products that we've experimented with, and there's some others out there that I'm not listing here. But anything that adds a little bit of minerals, pristine minerals to the water that you're drinking would be great. To almost all my water, when I'm using this 40-ounce container every morning, I'm doing a pretty decent amount of salt in it, because I feel like you can't get too much salt, especially if you're relatively low carb and kind of high meat and fat. So I add a decent amount of salt, and then I either add a half a packet of the LMNT, or I do a big squirt of the 40,000 volts. Right, the 40,000 volts has a little bit of sodium in it. I do love the LMNT. It does have some stevia in it. I don't know if anybody has a problem with stevia, but the LMNT has a really good blend of some nutrients, and it just makes hydration a lot easier because it tastes really, really good. And they have several different flavors out there that are awesome right now. They have variety packs. So I love LMNT stuff and the 40,000 volts. And then I've tried this thing called Highlight. And there's probably some others you guys have experienced or experimented with. As long as they check out as far as ingredients go, especially if they have some flavoring in it, that's where you got to be careful. But there's some others out there that I've seen that it's just impossible to list all of them up here. So infusing your water is great. So I used to do this like years ago when I first started. I would every couple of days soak a gallon of clean water with some chopped up oranges and lemons and limes. And then I would filter that into containers and then drink that. It tasted amazing, especially when it was cold. So there you're getting some cofactors, some bioflavonoids, maybe some water-soluble nutrients. As long as you're not squeezing the oranges and making orange juice out of it, I think the flavor that comes from it is great. But it's a little bit of an extra step now. I'm just relatively busy and I just don't have time for it all. So We'll send out our, we have some summary sheets, and we'll have links to everything that we talked about here. I felt like there's a couple of things that I didn't address as I was going through this, and I'm remembering part of it. Part of it is the water sewer locations. We'll have that in a blog post associated with this, so you know where to go. You can also Google water store, and I'm not sure that that's the name of a specific company, but you can maybe Google water location in Vegas or something like that. And there's a bunch of filtration places, and then also where to get RO systems. You can get them at Home Depot, you can get them at Lowe's, you can get them on Amazon. The only thing is you have to install those with a plumber or someone that knows what the heck they're doing with all that stuff. So what I did want to do here is I want to have, where I thought I had a video. Give me 1 second, because I have a video from Joy that I want to play that I thought was really good. Joy is our little local water service expert. Oh yeah, here we go. So I'm going to play this video. Hopefully y'all can hear it. So what's up, y'all? So talking about water and water quality, and I'm going to pause this real quick and tab over and see, can y'all hear that? If you can, give me a thumbs up. Can y'all hear me talking on that video? Or could you? All right, cool. All right, so we're going to play this little clip from Joy. Filtration systems. I wanted to bring Joy Parker on. She's a local Las Vegas water expert. She's the water expert for our community at the SHT, and but she works with people nationwide, worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah.
Where at? What other countries?
I would say we have customers across the world. We have customers in Belgium. We have customers in France. We have customers just across the United States, but we focus mainly on the United States for sure. Yeah.
So she can help you no matter where you're at. So how important is clean water?
It's everything, right? So water is your number one resource. That is the main thing I think people don't understand. They take that for granted, but water is your number one resource. And the bottom line is, if you don't filter your water, you are the filter, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So either you're filtering it, you're filtering it through a filtration system properly, or your body is filtering it, right? And your organs are absorbing all the contaminants in the water, which, can be very harmful to us. So it's very important.
Yeah. So if someone needs advice or help, picking a filtration system, buying one, installing it, do you offer any kind of services as far as that go? Or?
Yes, all of that. So we take a personal approach. We feel that water filtration is not a one size fits all. So we like to sit down. We like to talk with you and go over what your concerns are. We'll check your water quality. We have the ability to test water. So the water testing is really for well water most specifically, but I can test anybody's water, and it's a free service that we offer, and we'll sit down and we'll go over all the concerns that you have, and we'll put a system together specifically for you and your needs, basically.
But you told me earlier, if it's tap water, you already know the results are going to be bad.
Oh, yes.
So it's worth
for
testing
city
well
water.
Sure.
For city water, I can pull the water quality report, and of course I live in Vegas, so I'm very familiar with the water here. So that's very simple for me. But, I can also look through that report and scrutinize certain things for people. Like some people have specific concerns. They have specific contaminant concerns, and we can go over that.
Okay.
And some people have special situations. Like, for example, I have a customer recently, longtime customer, and she retired. So her husband bought an RV, and they're going to be traveling around the world. And she has chemical sensitivity. And she's like, I can't travel with him unless I have, filtration. So I built something. I put something together for them that fit in the RV with the specific type of filters and elements that she needed for the type of filtration. So she could go anywhere in the United States, and it would be filtered and, chemically safe for her. So I can build anything. I can put anything together.
Cool. Yeah. And she's a wealth of information. I've heard her service her customers, questions, comments, answers. It's like she's there 24/7. When you call, you actually talk to her usually, or
direct answer. Yeah. Yes, we have a direct answer. They don't go to voicemail. There's not an automated, message service or that type of thing. We take care of you.
Yep. And then one other thing I wanted to point out, it's not just drinking water. Like, I love my shower filter.
Oh, yes. Well, shower filters are very important because people don't realize that chlorine is most harmful when you're bathing in it, when it becomes heated. When it's heated, it becomes a vapor. It's called trihalometane. It comes out of solution, and when you're breathing that in the shower, that is really when it's in its most harmful state. is in the shower.
So a really
So
good
you've got
place
to get
to start.
that out.
You know?
Oh yeah, if you live in an apartment, right, you don't have access to the main water line, anybody can put a shower filter in, right? We have countertop filters for dorm rooms. You can use them for apartments. We pretty much have everything from a shower filter to like the most elaborate whole house filtration system that you can imagine. We pretty much have everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're excited to offer this service, y'all. Make sure that you reach out. We'll have links, phone number, email, everything that you need to contact Joy. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Cool. So she is our local water person. And how do I stop sharing? Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, she's our local water person, and if you have any questions at all, like she really is really selfless with her information and her advice and stuff like that. I've heard her talk to people and work with people, and it's just great to talk to a human being when you have some questions about stuff. If you end up buying like an RO system from her or something, she'll help you source a plumber. Like we went through a process a couple of years ago where we tried to find a couple different people that we tried. I think she's found people that she really likes, and they're relatively cost effective. If you end up putting an RO system in, like the initial investment, I can't remember what it is, $300 to $600 or something, but then you've got that for almost a lifetime. You just have to replace some of the filters in it periodically, but you're talking about like cents on the gallon, versus whatever it is you're paying for your water in other places, which right now I'm paying like, I don't know, like my Topo Chicos come out to be a little less than $1 a bottle, and I'm going through a lot of those every day. But anyway, I think that's everything. I felt like there was a couple things as I was going through this. One of them is the water store location. All right, so I'm gonna go here and look at questions because I can't remember what the heck it was, because I'm like, I need to add these before I put them into the community. Is the recommendation the same for kids? So Mindy asks, is that recommendation the same for kids? I think the hydration amount. I think it's a great place to start. Kids tend to be, ideally, theoretically, a little bit more active than we are, so it can't hurt, especially if you're struggling to get a certain amount of water in your kids. And by the way, juices, coffee, and tea do not count. Actually, in the holistic realm, they'd say that those are things that you have to drink double the water. So if you drink 2 cups of coffee, you need to drink 4 cups of water to replace the 2 cups of coffee, because coffee, juices, tea tend to be more of a diuretic, although that's kind of debatable. So I think it is a good place to start for kids, especially if some of what they're drinking is juices and stuff like that. I don't think it could hurt. So maybe just a good strategy would be setting aside a certain amount of water every day and saying, hey, this is your water that we want you to drink through for the day or something. All right. Let's see. Raptor, I'm going to have to look into. Reverse osmosis, we covered that. I hope I answered your questions or talked about whatever you need to know about the reverse osmosis. Bravo. And then how about electrolyte water, smart waters, that's marketing hype? Oh, no, when they're throwing in some electrolytes and stuff like that, I think it's great. It's fine. I'm just a big fan of using these mineral combinations from Trace Mineral Research and some of these other companies like Rob Wolf and a couple co-founders did the whole LMT thing, and they figured out what the minerals that are most beneficial to people that are eating real food and losing a lot of the salt and stuff that we get from processed food. So I just like people to have this holistic health mindset. I don't know that Smart Water really has that kind of an understanding of what we're going through, but I think it's fine. Smart Water is another good option. It's reverse osmosis, carbon filtration. I think it goes through a pretty extensive filtration process, but then the problem there is the whole bottled water thing. So I think the big takeaway from this, y'all, is to understand that, first of all, I think all of us, since we're real foodies, like it's not as big an issue as far as the amount of water that we need to consume. But because all of us are real foodies and we're probably drinking decent water, I think the big takeaway from this is that if we're not drinking filtered water or drinking from the tap, we definitely need to stop the tap thing. And if we're doing bottled water from Costco and Sam's Club and all that stuff, bottled water in a pinch is fine. It's better than drinking tap water for sure, I think. But what we want is to move towards a position where we are creating our own filtered water, whether it's through an RO system. I'm going to share the Aqua True thing that I found the other day. I think that's what we're going to invest in. And then I like sparkling water to supplement really, really clean water drinking. All right. So I think that's the big homework for all of us, is that first step is trying to move away from bottled water and having our own filtration system. And it's so much more convenient. Like I can't wait to not have to go to Whole Foods to fill my water jugs. What else? I think that would be the big takeaways. Okay. Any other questions, comments?